Hey everyone, my name is Mark. I am a mental health therapist and I'm here with another video. And today we are going to talk about ending stigma about mental health. So before we start, I want to ask you to think about something. I want you to think about what you learned or what messages you received about mental health growing up, wherever you're from. Do you think of somebody who walks around talking to themselves, or maybe talks to things that aren't there? Do you imagine someone who's frightening, scary, violent, or unpredictable? Do you imagine somebody who can't take care of themselves, is maybe dirty, or has torn clothes or no shoes? Someone who can't really contribute to society? Do you think of somebody who has to feel shame, that has to hide the way they feel or the way they act, um, that that can't be open in public about what they experience? If any of these images came to your mind, that's stigma. So let's get a definition about stigma here going. Stigma are any negative or harmful beliefs, thoughts, or ideas that we as individuals, or even as a society or culture, have about mental health and mental illness. And these ideas prevent people from accessing support, getting treatment, therapy, and generally being able to live a fulfilling life. So what causes stigma? Stigma is a result of many things. First, stereotypes. Stereotypes that we have about people with mental health and mental illness concerns. We might think of them as they're lazy, or that they're dangerous, or they're just trying to get attention, or that it's all in their head, and if they just think differently, they'll be better. These stereotypes are wrong. These stereotypes can be perpetuated by the media we see, our TV, movies, commercials, books, online. Think about the last time you saw a movie with somebody who suffered from a mental health condition, depression, anxiety, something else. Have you ever seen a movie where that person was not violent? Where they didn't hurt people? Have you ever seen a movie where somebody with a mental health concern was the victim of violence? I imagine that in most cases, it's always been that person was violent. So that perpetuates stereotypes. There might be social, cultural, or religious aspects that contribute to stigma, such as family shame, isolation or exile of a person who struggles with mental health concerns. Maybe ideas that a mental health issue is because somebody is too sinful or is possessed by a spirit or a demon. Basically around a misunderstanding of that person's behavior. So when stigma exists around mental health and mental illness, it's easy to see what some of the effects, outcomes for people are when they're stigmatized. Maybe they lose their family and community support. They're kicked out of their homes or pushed out of their community because of stigma. Maybe there's discrimination around whether they can get a home to live in, rent a place, or get a job. Sometimes in extreme cases, there may be laws that are made against people with mental illness. For example, in Canada, long ago, there were laws that allowed forced sterilization of people with mental illness so that they weren't allowed to have children, and they did not consent to this. There may also be a lack of formal supports, not able to see a therapist. Maybe therapists don't even exist in the place that they live. No medication, no access to medication or treatment. And then finally, bullying, violence, and even sexual violence. In Canada, people with mental health conditions are 3.5% more likely to report getting assaulted or being the victim of violence than the general population. but they're also less likely to report. So even though their report statistic is higher, they're also less likely to report to police than the general population, which means that the number of people with mental health conditions who suffer violence, who are victims of violence, are much higher than the 3.5% that is formally reported. Because of stigma, people with mental health illness and mental conditions are more likely to be homeless. They're more likely to feel hopeless, like that they have any kind of bright future. They're more likely to be in poverty, to have starvation, to experience trauma, to contemplate and to attempt suicide, and are more likely to die from a variety of reasons. So the first and probably one of the most important steps to ending stigma around mental health concerns and mental illness is education. Simply learning about what these things are. So I'm going to start with telling you about what mental health is. Mental health is something we all have. And there's a lot of very different aspects to mental health. So, mental health is managing mental illness. If you have a mental illness, that means getting the appropriate treatment, taking your medication properly, and managing it as best you can. Mental health is also about emotional health. Emotional health is about understanding all of our emotions, when we feel them, and being able to communicate them in a healthy way that doesn't result in hurt or harm to ourselves or another. Mental health is also about our social health, our ability to make important, close connections with other people, to have a community of people that we can rely on when things get hard, and to feel close to others. Also, our relationship health, especially among our family and our partners and spouses. Do we feel equal? Are we able to communicate what we think and what we feel without judgment? Can we disagree without arguing and screaming and yelling at each other and come to solutions? That's all relationship health. Our mental health is also about our intellectual health. Are we learning things that we're interested in? Can we share what we learned with others? Are we feeling intellectually fulfilled? And also, it's about our spiritual health. Can we practice our religion or our spirituality without judgment, without fear of being persecuted? Do we feel connected to something that's greater than us, that's bigger than us? Does our life have a purpose that we feel like, something we can achieve, more meaning? All of these things are part of our mental health. All right, so we learned about what mental health is, so now let's talk about mental illness. Much like a physical illness, such as diabetes, a cold, a flu, cancer, a mental illness is a specific disorder that has a defined set of symptoms, which is experienced over a specific period of time. And mental illnesses can be diagnosed by a psychiatrist. So here are some examples of mental illnesses that you may or may not have heard of. Major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, anorexia, schizophrenia. These are all examples of specific mental illnesses that can be diagnosed by a psychiatrist. So how do we actually end the stigma around mental health and mental illness? One thing I told you about already is education. The more you learn, the more you understand the science and facts behind mental health, the less stigma you and society will have about it. The more people who learn, the greater impact it has on society. Understanding how mental illness is just like physical illness. It has specific, concrete effects on the way your brain works, things that you can't just think or feel your way out of. And another thing we can do is to listen to people who talk about their mental health concerns. Social media is full of people who will openly talk about the things that they struggle with. And as I said, celebrities continue to come out more and more to talk about what they experience and what they're going through. So you don't even have to interact. You don't have to ask anybody that you know. All you can do is listen. Also, support people. If somebody in your life tells you that they're struggling, don't ignore them, don't push them away, don't distance yourself from them. Ask them what you can do to support. Most of the time, they just want somebody to talk to listen to them, and who won't give them advice. Leave advice to professional mental health care workers such as myself, therapists, psychologists, and clinical social workers. Also, be careful about what you say. A lot of the time, we use words like crazy or stupid, and we just throw them around without really thinking about them. Definitely don't use a person's mental health against them. You may never do that to a family member, but even if those people see you mocking or judging other people, they're going to know that you're not a safe person to talk to. So be careful with what you say. And then finally, don't avoid talking about it. Share what you learn with people in your life. If you decide to listen to other people with mental illness, if you seek out education, information online, share it, especially with your children. Mental health stigma starts with the messages we receive in childhood from our parents, our culture, our society, and sometimes our religion. If you never talk to your kids about it, then they're just going to see those messages, and that's what they're going to believe. All right, that's it for me today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching my video. Can't wait to see you all again next time. And remember, listen and learn. And that is how we end mental health stigma. Bye.